In the final video on functional motion, we'll be looking at ways we can direct attention or highlight certain actions using motion. A lot of times there will be specific steps that a user needs to take to be successful. Using motion to highlight these steps can make your app more usable and improve engagement. You can also highlight success or error states using motion. How obvious the specific animation should be depends a lot on the context. If there's a critical error that needs to be addressed immediately, it may need to have a bigger, bolder animation, but if it's just a minor warning, it can be something that's subtler, or maybe it doesn't even need animation at all. By using the duration and delay features, as well as some custom easing curves, we'll look at how we can make these animated indicators really minor or really obvious. So to create these animated indicators within the app, we'll be focused on the welcome screen. If someone lands on this screen, we really want them to add a subscription. There's not much value in the app unless they have some subscriptions added. If it looks like someone is just sitting on this screen and doesn't know what to do next, then we'll just push them in that direction. And then finally, if they still don't notice that, we can make it even bolder to make it really obvious what the next action that someone needs to take is. I'll copy the welcome screen over, and then we'll just add a small circle in the corner of the subscription button. I'll copy the same pink color that we're using in the logo, and then make sure this is positioned right on the corner. And then I'll copy that and paste it back onto the first screen. On the first screen, we want to make it a little smaller. We'll make it just 2 pixels, and then position it on the corner and turn opacity to 0. And then selecting the whole artboard, I'll create an interaction, and we'll set it on timer. I'll leave timeout to 0, but this time I'll bump up delay to 1 second. For a timer animation, this does pretty much the same thing, but if you're using a tap animation or something that doesn't have the timeout option, it will just pause it for the amount of time before starting the animation. I'll hit save, and then we can preview this. You can see it includes the delay in the timeline, so that makes it really easy to adjust and update. I'll zoom in so we can see exactly what this is doing. And right now it's just popping up with ease in, ease out. We want to make it a little more obvious, so I'll select pop for right now. You can see that gives it just a little bit of bounce, but let's make it even more obvious. So I'll drag the beginning curve further up to the right, and you can see we get a little more bounce in there. When we make it really extreme, you can see that the opacity actually decreases as it goes backwards. And so we don't want that to happen. We just want the motion to be on the curve rather than the opacity as well. So I'll go to the oval, and you can see this small triangle icon. If I select that, that gives me the ability to modify every single individual property of this. If I go to opacity, I'll change that back to ease both. And then I'm going to actually have the opacity come in a little faster than the motion. There we go. If we zoom back out a bit, you can see that it just has a little pulse, so it really kind of calls attention to the button. And then we'll copy this page over one more time, and now we want to make that even more obvious. So I'll create another circle, and I'll give it a 30% opacity. And then I'll make this second one just a little bigger. And then finally, I'll copy it over one more time. For this one, we want the larger circle to get a lot smaller, and then the full color circle, we'll make it just a little bit smaller. And then basically what'll happen is we'll bounce between these two states if someone still doesn't take this action. We'll go back to where we first created the indicator, create an interaction, and we'll leave delay on 3 seconds this time. Going to the fully expanded state, we want to drop this down to 0. And then to have it bounce back between those two, we'll go to welcome 3 and bring it back to this one, keeping the same settings. Now we can preview the whole thing starting from the first welcome screen. After a second, our indicator pops in, and then waiting a few more seconds, it starts to pulse. So it makes it really obvious that we want someone to click this add subscription button. We don't necessarily need to start the pulsing immediately though, which is why we do a subtler animation up front. So we saw in this particular animation The custom easing curves are a great way to direct attention to a certain part of the screen. Using custom easing can also be a great way to distinguish your designs from others that use default motion curves. It can give your app a bit more personality rather than using similar motion to other products. This is also true for modifying individual properties like we did with the opacity. For now though, we'll move on to using motion to create structure and space within our apps, but we'll have more examples of using motion to create personality further along in the course.